Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Shouting Into the Void, the weekly video series where myself and Liam, I'm pretty sure he's that side, but never mind, we discuss Doctor Who, specifically episodes of Doctor Who, even more specifically, those episodes from 2005 onwards, even more specifically, episode 10, series 5, Vincent and the Doctor. That is our topic of discussion this week. I'll premise this by saying my windows are open because it's quite warm, so there could be screaming children because it was also the summer holidays and I'm on the ground floor. So if you hear any screaming children, it's not the ones I've got held captive, it's the ones outside. Okay.
The other ones have been silent for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they can't speak anymore.
We're starting off strong about an episode like this. We're starting off strong.
That's
children,
true.
Everyone.
Oh yeah.
We're also, if you're not like the Graffaius and you can see, we're not in the same room this time.
Yes, unfortunately not, because we are pretty lazy. So hopefully the internet will hold up. Knowing us, probably not, but hey ho, that's the modern world we live in. But yeah, let's crack into it. This is probably one of the highest rated episodes, I would say, especially of Matt Smith's run, if not the whole of New Who. And rewatching it, I would say that's probably pretty well earned.
Yes, I agree.
I really liked almost all of it. The issues I have are sort of very, very basic and nitpicky, really. I've only got 2 of the 3 negatives that we normally come out with, so that's always a positive sign. And I've got 8 positives out of the 3 that we normally have. So there's quite a few. I won't go through all of them in depth, obviously, only the top 3. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's got a good emotional core, I think, this episode. It's just the performances are outstanding, I think, from everyone. The music choices at times are very good, and I just think that this is some really, really good Doctor Who that it's very hard to replicate something like this, and it hasn't really been done since, especially with like this kind of historical thing. I think Rosa attempts to do some of this in Jodie's first series, and to some extent it kind of matches it, but I think this one still stands above the rest in terms of that like historical character type thing. And the issues it tackles. But what did you think of the episode?
Yeah, I adored it. It's definitely, I think it's one of the best episodes of the show. I think it's probably the most important episode of the show as well, in terms of like wider narrative. In terms of Doctor Who itself, they're probably more important ones like the anniversary specials and stuff like that. I think, considering this was 12 years old now, still holds up so well in what it tackles, even more relevant than it ever was, I think, as well, with what it kind of goes into. My big worry was that the first 2/3 weren't going to be as captivating than the last third, but I was disproved, and I was very happy to say that my worries were not necessary, because I really enjoyed it right from the start. Like you were saying, brilliant performances all around. Obviously, I imagine we'll talk about some of them in a bit more detail as time goes on. But yeah, a standout episode of this series, of this era, of the show in general. And yeah, very, very well deserved in the love that it gets. That I think also does and should go beyond just that final scene. I think it's really well done from start to finish.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because I think we did have some concerns that it might just be people might just get blindsided by the last sort of 5 minutes. And I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of it, there's a lot more depth in this episode than I thought there would be, even if sometimes something could be surface level, there's still like hidden depth behind it, which I think helps. So as usual, we tend to do 3 positives and 3 negatives where we can. I'll let you start this week. What's your first positive?
You're going to be shocked to your core, maybe. It's the museum scene at the end.
Same. That's my first one.
I wrote that down before I even pressed play on the episode, because I kind of figured. And yeah, damn. Holy shit. That got me good this time. I've never cried at Doctor Who more, I don't think, than I did today with my chicken McNuggets. So yeah, that was a lot. As soon as that music kicks in, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not ready for this. But yeah. I don't even know if it really hit me that hard when it first aired. You know, it's definitely a standout moment, and you know, I think the response to it ever since then has been huge. But every repeat viewing now, and it's not when I come back to that much, because it, you know, it's not exactly like, oh, I'm in a good fun mood. Let's put Vincent and the Doctor on. You know, which
it's not a
is
comfort
just,
episode, really.
No,
it's not
one of those things. It's not one I would rush back to, just because I like the subject matter and stuff, as important as it is. But yeah, that whole scene, Tony Curran in that moment as Vincent is phenomenal. You know, well, everyone is really, but yeah, it's so good. Bill Nye's speech and how that's written, how he kind of performs it, how it's all set up and shot. I love the shot of the picture of Van Gogh, and then he steps into it, and then they repeat that with Amy when she goes back at the end, like, so good. So everything with that is wonderful. You know, it's an iconic moment of the show, and well deserved. So emotional, something only Doctor Who can do, I think, in particular. You know, there's so many different sci-fi things, but a lot of sci-fi, I think, forgets about the emotions and sympathy and empathy, and Doctor Who tends to not forget about that, which I think is why it's lasted and is so well loved. And this is like the personification of that. So wonderful. And I guess it does, because it's the museum scene, it kind of does bleed into when they revisit at the end as well. And you know, nothing's really changed, apart from a few minor paintings and all of that. It's so good. I love how it ends off with the Doctor and Amy, and Amy saying brighter than sunflowers at the end. For some reason, that really gets me. I hadn't really noticed that until I watched it for the lockdown tweet along thing. I forgot that was like the last line. I don't know what it is about it. The way, I think some of it is how Karen Gillan just says it. And it's just a really lovely, hopeful final line, considering how awful this poor man's life was. And it is sad that, you know, he didn't get to know how loved he and his work would ultimately be. But I'm glad we kind of get a glimmer of that through everything in the museum and how it's all put together. It's just sublime. Doctor Who at its best, I think, and the pinnacle of why Doctor Who is such a great show.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I can't really add much to that, but I think the sort of, if you were like the fan that says everything New Who is terrible, you could be like, oh, but the Doctor breaks his own rule by showing Vincent the museum and stuff. And I'm like, well, shut up, because it's great.
It's not his own personal timeline. Well. Shut up.
Yeah, it works.
It works people from
really
Pompeii.
Well.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't matter now. But yeah, I think it works well. And then obviously the realization that it didn't really impact him as much as Amy obviously thought it would be.
I think that's another reason why the Doctor's willing to do it, because he knows.
Yeah, he obviously he must know that something happened. You know, that's why I really like how it's done, how it's shot. The music it's one of the rare times when Doctor Who uses real music. And sort of going back to Rosa, I know it got a lot of criticism for the use of a song in that one. I'm like,
I really like.
Do you not remember Vincent the Doctor doing almost exactly the same thing?
Yeah. And who do we have to thank for this music choice? Let's find out in the fun facts later on. Oh, stay tuned.
But yeah, I think it. You know, the Doctor Who uses real music very sparingly, and when it is used to great effect. You think of Voodoo Child in Sound of Drums. You think
Toxic.
Of Toxic in The World.
Iconic. And that's the second ever episode of the revival.
Yeah, exactly.
Doctor Who doesn't do this.
Doesn't use real music. How dare they? But yeah, I think it's used very well here. It's just all. It's almost just one of the perfect scenes in the show that you cannot pick a flaw for it. No matter what comes before in the episode or how it fits contextually in the show, you could show someone this and be like, well, that's, you know, you can get that's clearly supposed to be Vincent van Gogh and that he's clearly in it. You know, you can get everything just from this one scene. And I think it's just done very, very well. And it is obviously very hard to replicate. And you know, in some ways it shouldn't be, because it's just excellent. It's just one of them things that everyone remembers and sort of loves about the show and this series and era as a whole. Which it's very hard to add more onto that, really. So yeah, that is my first one. So what is your second one?
My second is, I'm not sure I got it the right way around. Tony Curran as
Van
Gogh. What a man! What a man! I think one of the best guest appearances we've had on the show. certainly thus far doing this again. Yeah, he's phenomenal. You know, I think just the level of kind of emotion that he can put into it, and I do not envy anyone who has to play like a real person in anything, but Doctor Who as well, because they more often than not, you know, they focus on like one particular aspect of, you know, the person. You know, William Shakespeare in the Shakespeare Code, they kind of lean into like his more flirtatious side and stuff, rather than some other elements of you know, what we know about him. And this one kind of leans into one of the hardest things you can probably have to portray, and it's the emotional crux of the entire thing. You know, I think this episode would have been long forgotten if a lesser actor had played Vincent, because, you know, that whole last scene in the museum could have easily just completely flopped in, you know, the hands of a lesser actor in that part. But he's just phenomenal and very likable right from the off. I think he bounces off, you know, the other actors really well. I love the trio of the three of them in this episode. And yeah, I think he really matches up to that. And yeah, it wouldn't work without him. And I think that's such a brilliant kind of, you know, thing that he brings to it. The pressure, I can't even imagine at the time. So I don't really know how well known, you know, Van Gogh would have been in like the public eye, and certainly in like Doctor Who fans, if it hadn't been for what he brought to that part. So, you know, he has some really funny moments in there as well. But when he has to kind of really portray Vincent's bipolar and, you know, the depression and everything he was going through, I do think he's phenomenal. And he really gives it his all. And yeah, definitely a big standout of guest stars that we've had thus far. He is fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, yeah, for me, if ever I'm picturing Vincent van Gogh, even outside of this, I'm thinking of his face, of him looking like that. And so when you see like other pictures of like people painting him or what he would look like, that's not the guy from Doctor Who.
That's fun.
So, you know, that kind of says what kind of impact it has. And, you know, even I went to the Van Gogh live experience this summer of the Jubilee weekend in May, I think it was. And even then, like, you see it all, and then you see it in real life. It's, you know, it's not the real art, but you see it there, and then you see it sort of, you know, in this, and you see him. You can believe that those paintings have come from this actor, if that makes sense. You believe that he is the person, and it's what you always want to see. You believe he's the person rather than the actor playing the person, which is when you get those great performances. If you think of, you know, Taron Egerton as Elton John, more recently Austin Butler as Elvis, you get those performances that like almost remove who that person really is in your head and replaces them with the actor, because they do such a good job of portraying that. And it's even harder to do when there's very little, you know, known about the person that you're playing, because he's not like, you know, Elton John or Elvis Presley, where there's plenty of interviews, footage, pictures, and you cannot get sort of inside their head as much as you might have been with a modern day person. And I think what he brings to this, how true or not it could be, you know, how exaggerated or not it is, we can't really be sure, but I think it does a good job of showing the issues that Vincent had faced throughout his life, even if it is slightly on a, you know, more, I'd say, conservative approach, because it still is a family kids show, so they can't be like true, like, you know, he's got both his ears in this point, so, you know, they avoid that. And, you know, even though that's one of the most sort of well-known facts about him,
I wonder if there's a reason for that.
Oh boy,
stay tuned to find out.
tease. But yeah, I think he's excellent in this role. And spoiler alert, I'm excited to see him return ever so briefly in the series finale. So yeah, again, that's my second positive as well. So what's your third one? Are we going to make it a hat trick this week?
I don't know. My third one is the exploration of mental illness.
Oh no, that's not. I mean, that is one of my additional ones.
No, Connor doesn't care about mental illness.
No,
it's obvious.
Just have you tried feeling better?
Oh god, physically paid me. I actually started to hate you a bit then.
I understand. That's fair. I hate myself.
Same. Whoa. we did have it in common after all.
Yes.
But yeah. Anyway, moving on. How the episode kind of tackles mental illness head on A real first for Doctor Who, certainly in this kind of extent, making it, a huge factor of Vincent and the story. How Tony Cohen kind of performs it as well, how it's written. It's all, a really important aspect of Vincent. So to do an episode about him and kind of exclude that would have been wrong. So I'm glad that that wasn't, how they went about it. And how, mental health issues can be, an unseen problem to so many people. And it's still something I think some other generations may not want to understand because, it would be hard on them. Nevertheless, the poor people who actually are going through it. So kind of parallel that by having an invisible monster that you can see what damage it does, but can't see the actual thing itself. The Doctor at the start kind of says, "Oh, I've seen evil. I know evil when I see it in that window." He's completely misunderstanding it, and then comes to grips with it at the end. Much as some people may go through with mental illness and kind of recognizing that it is a big fucking deal, people. By the end of it, how that they kind of tie everything with that actually into elements of the characters and the story itself. It's really cool that they didn't shy away from that, and they showed the highs of it, they showed the lows of it. That scene when he's crying in his bed is awful, but a very important thing to get across as well. Particularly with Vincent, because I think it was bipolar disorder that he had as well, not just depression and everything. So when he's fine in the very next scene, I like that they don't shy away from that aspect, and it's going to get people asking questions, and they have like a helpline and stuff at the end of this episode when it first aired. So yeah, I think it's a very important thing that it tackles, and I'm glad they do it again with Can You Hear Me in series 12. So yeah, it's a very important issue, and it's nice as a Doctor Who fan to know that the show we loved was talking about that even 12 years ago, when it's kind of been probably the last 5 or so years where it's really, really become a super important thing. So once again, Doctor Who is kind of ahead of its time in a lot of what it tackles, and I like that they really commit to the bit on it.
Yeah, and obviously with this as well, with it being seen by so many families and kids that may have, who knows at the age, we were 13 at the time, and there were always, I know, there were already, kids in our years, above our years, or will go on to have sort of these similar issues, and it's good that not people feel represented, but it kind of spreads awareness that these things are aware that they're about.
Yeah,
and that's what, as much as people complain about Doctor Who being it's woke or political or whatever, these kinds of issues are ones that need to be addressed. No
this episode would have saved lives.
Exactly. And if people don't want to, and if people don't want to discuss that in real life, it's up to these kinds of shows to sort of point them point them out and show them and put them in this kind of child-friendly way so that people can relate to them and understand maybe what they're going through and what people around them might be going through. And I think this did do a lot. And it does help. And it might not be, we sort of joked about, it's not really the episode that you put on and you would go to first of all, but if you are feeling that kind of down and depressed way, this might be something that you turn to when you're feeling pretty rough, because it's a quote from something, but you don't want to listen to happy music when you're sad. You want to watch sad stuff, and you want to listen to sad stuff when you're sad, and this is probably one that a lot of people would turn to. I think it's a Charlie Higson book, actually. I think it's the Enemy that quote's from. So there you go, kids. That's another youth YA adaptation talking about mental health. Also a very good book if you want to read some fun.
We were both at
stuff.
The event where he signed it.
Yes.
Oh, I don't think we knew each other then.
No, that was probably around the same time this came out, wasn't it? 13 years ago, 12 years ago when we were 13.
Might have been, actually.
Something like that, wasn't it? Yeah. God, what a twist.
Time flies.
Oh yeah.
I think it's a very important thing, I think, for people to see that people go through this who are long gone, like Vincent, and the Doctor's speech about life being a part of good things and bad things is one of my favourite lines in Doctor Who. I think it's so wonderful, so brilliantly written and performed. I think people will sometimes just need to hear that, even if they just put that clip up on YouTube or something. The fact that this episode exists and will always kind of exist, and that clip at the end is always going to be shared around. It's nice that people will have that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And sort of the whole the metaphor of the monster is sort of one of my additional positives of, you know, how it's this unseen thing that only certain people can see and experience, but at the same time sometimes the impacts can be far reaching and impact people that, you know, perhaps can't see or can't feel it, and how it's all sort of tied in and all that kind of thing I really like. But my sort of third main positive, kind of came out of left field a little bit for me, is Bill Nye.
Yeah.
You know, I remembered him being in it, and I remember him sort of, you know, having a couple of scenes, but well, first of all, he stole every scene he was in, which, you know, with the big actor he is, he's probably gonna do that anyway. But sort of the role he plays in the museum thing, I think is excellent. His little speech, the one bit in particular that just shows his sort of acting is when Vincent and Amy and the Doctor leave, and he kind of like turns back and like dismisses it out of hand. I'm like, it's just the subtlety of that I really like in this, that I think you probably wouldn't get with someone that's maybe not as experienced as him. And I think it's just a very underrated, strange to say underrated, even though the episode is very highly rated, but not very many people will talk about Bill Nye in this episode.
The scenes he's in, but not like him himself. You really believe that he knows everything there is to know about that man.
Yeah, exactly. And you can, you know, I think it's just, it adds to the sort of gravitas of the situation, having this sort of big actor discuss this. And
funny you should say that. That may be the exact reason they cast it.
Oh, there we go. I could write this show easily. Who would get? I could do it. But yeah, I think he's excellent in this. He's an excellent actor anyway. I think he really, it just, you know, it's hard to, you know, find other ways to praise him other than he's just excellent in this, and he really steals the scene, and just adds that, just those extra levels that this, especially the museum scene, you know, really could have used. And also, you know, there's some like hard moments in there when they're talking about the bow ties and stuff, and you know, he can do all of it, which is great. So yeah, what other positives have you got? Because I'm sure you've got a couple.
I've got a couple. Yeah, I've kind of put just the performances all around. I think everyone has all their moments to shine. Like Bill Nye is great. I think Karen Gillan, particularly in those last couple of scenes, she's fantastic. Matt Smith has some great moments as well. I like when the little section where he's just on his own for a bit with the device and everything, just being doctory. I think he's really great there as well. You know, the kind of physical comedy they have him do when he's like the monster's gone and they're just staring and he's still like swiping the air and stuff, and when he tries to copy
turn around
whoa, and like making each other jump, and when he's like copying the pose that the statue has in the museum, just little things like that. I do really enjoy about all of them, just as like a love letter to Vincent van Gogh. You know, I like that it's a realistic portrayal, which is what they went for, but not a cruel one. Is what, like, kind of the brief I think that the writer kind of set himself. And I do like that, you know, they can market this in a way like, well, if you like Vincent van Gogh, tune in to Doctor Who this week. But, you know, it's a respectful portrayal of him as well, while not being
not cash grab.
So I really like that. It's a love letter to his works. You know, there is a list on the wiki of like every single painting that they show or make reference to, and it's a very long list. So I decided to leave it out of the fun facts, but you can look it up, and there's just so many. Like, it's such a huge celebration of his life, which I really enjoy. And then my main additional one, I guess, is the scene where Vincent's explaining the sky to them and it transforms into Starry Night. That is such a beautiful scene. I love the visuals of it. And again, it's something I feel like only Doctor Who can really do in its way. You know, because there were a few aspects where we saw, you know, the Graffaius through Vincent's eyes. Most of the time when it had actual screen time and we saw the creature, it was Vincent's POV, which I thought was a nice touch. And then it was just in the mirror and everything other than that, which I really liked. And then again, you see it in his point of view properly, because along with the Doctor and Amy, we get to see the sky transform and see the world how Vincent might have seen it as he's explaining it. I think it's such a lovely scene as well. A nice little hopeful moment after the kind of tragedy, I guess, of how it ends for the Graffaius. So, you know, that's a nicely did palate cleanser just before it's going to get very sad and you know, tears are going to be shed again. So yeah, I love that scene too.
I think that's fair. That's one of my positive ones. Is I've just just put down Vincent's vision, which is obviously the scene. You know, it's on that hilltop that they tease in the teaser trailer where it explodes. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. They just take out.
Oh,
you
maybe,
know.
yeah.
And yeah, I do really like that. I forgot that was even in it, that scene where they're on the hilltop. So that was a nice surprise. The set design, I think specifically the set design when it came to replicating his paintings, whether that's his bedroom or the little cafe, I think is done fairly well. And sort of the carelessness Vincent has for his own paintings, you know, where he's got that coffee pot on one of them, he like wipes it away.
Yeah, when he paints
I
over
think,
one with white, and they're like,
yeah,
no.
yeah, and I think it's all very well done there. Matt Smith is also one of my extra ones as well. I think he was excellent in this. One scene that always stands out is when Vincent's talking about how he can hear color, and the doctor's like, oh, like as if he's trying to hear it himself. And I'm like, I really do appreciate that. And then that also lends into my sort of final extra positive, which is there's a lot more humor in this episode than I thought there was going into it. You know, there's obviously some deep themes, but there's still humor in this that Doctor Who can add into it, and I think it works. It doesn't overstep either way. You never feel that it's too funny and it takes away from the sad moments, as other franchises may do at times. I don't think that this has this problem at all, and it was a lot funnier than I remember it being, which is obviously a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for our positives. Now we'll get into the negatives, because pretty much no episode of Doctor Who is perfect, unfortunately. Not yet, at least. We haven't seen the centenary yet, so for all we know, it could be the most perfect episode of Doctor Who.
That's true.
Probably not, because no episode of Doctor Who is perfect, but you never know.
And also, that's 90 minutes that has to be perfect, not just 45.
Yes, much longer.
Yeah.
Literally double the length. That's 2 episodes worth of perfect, and I don't think that'll happen. So what is your first negative? Let's see if we've got any similar ones.
Maybe. Again, I don't have any like real negatives, but you know, 12 years old, CGI budget was probably running out at this point. The Graffaius, the design of him is cool as hell. I really like how he looks.
When it's the drawn version of it, looks great.
I almost wish, again, it would have been like a budget thing if we could like see it in like the style of like a Van Gogh painting or something, and that's how he saw it or whatever. But the actual CGI creature isn't the best, I would say. It hasn't aged particularly well. I think even at the time it probably wasn't the best. Definitely, we're coming to the end of the season. CGI
they've got to save all their budget for the finale.
Yeah, the Atraxi looked so good, so that this could look
basically.
But you know, I guess it is invisible for most of the time, so it's kind of fine. But it's hard to kind of ignore. I think sometimes that you know, you want to feel really sorry for this creature, but I'm like, well, it's definitely not really. I say having cried this time when it died, which I haven't done. But it's a shame. Well designed, but Doctor Who doesn't have much money, so there you go.
Yeah, I think my first negative is the CGI monster as well. I think it works when it's sort of briefly on camera, like when the wing comes out or where it's briefly seen in the reflection. But I think when it's when it lingers on it too long, is when when it moves and when it's focusing on, you know, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I'm sorry, Doctor Who. It looks cool, and the little drawing that they got of it in the book or whatever it was that they see, it looks great. Just looks like it's a turkey with like all the gully bits, when not a very good looking turkey either. When it comes out, which is unfortunate because, you know, you're not supposed to be thinking about what it looks like in the CGI for it. You're supposed to think about, you know, what it represents and everything like that, but it just doesn't look good. So
I'm glad it was invisible most of the time.
Yes, I would hope that if it was going to be in real life, they would have had practical effects, but never mind. It is what it is. So what's your second negative?
I mean, the CGI was the only real complaint I guess I kind of have, but I was kind of reaching for the others because, again, I'm fine with it, but you know, I guess the Doctor having a very convenient gadget that's going to help him do what he needs to do and helps him for some reason, you can see it in a reflection, you know, that's kind of convenient, I guess. But also I really enjoy that sequence. And you know, there's not enough time in the episode for the Doctor to have a real hard time trying to find it in the TARDIS. It's just in this chest. So they talk about him getting it from an aunt or whatever. So there's a history to it. Yeah, I can't even remember, but a smelly aunt. So guess it's kind of like old James Bond film as convenient. Oh, I have a problem. Luckily, I have this that's perfect for it. But it doesn't really bother me. But I need negatives. So convenient gadget is convenient, but also when does Doctor Who not do that?
Yeah, that's true. My second and last negative actually is one of your favorite things. The constant repetition of saying that they can't see the monster. I know you can't see the monster, guys. Stop telling me every 2 minutes that you can't see the monster,
it's
please.
Well established that you can't see it.
Because it was like they were even in the church, like right at the end, and Amy's like, "Oh, I can't see it. Obviously, you can't see it. You haven't been able to see it the whole time."
You're keeping up. Well done.
So I think that's like my main thing. That's like a script issue that I don't know. Time. It's often they're doing something and it's being said. So maybe they just needed. Maybe it just didn't sound right with no one saying anything, and you're just staring at this this blank, screen.
Don't look at the CGI. Listen to the voice.
Yeah, exactly. So that wasn't the best for me. It was just it got to a point where I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. I know you can't see it. I get the point, but it it is what it is. That's a very sort of small nitpick because it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's pretty. We point it out a lot, and it does happen a lot in the show as a whole. No matter what, no matter who the writer is, it's just an issue the show has. So do you have a third negative?
I kind of stole your one about the kids that you messaged me about, because maybe it wouldn't have bothered me if you hadn't told me about it before I watched it. But as soon as it said it, I was like, oh, it's a Doctor fake out. I see. There's a tiny little scene where the kids are like, oh, it's the Doctor, and then the Doctor turns on, the Doctor who helped it, or something like that. That is an interaction that didn't need to happen. She messaged me like the kids in the museum are unnecessary. I'm like, what, just the kids in general? Like you just don't want the kids there?
In general,
But that was, again, it doesn't really bother me. But
plus a few of the lines I think are ADR'd for them as well, so it doesn't even it doesn't fit very well. I think there's a couple of lines in this one that are ADR'd a little bit poorly as well, but that seems to be an issue that they've had ironically also with Vampires of Venice, and I have a feeling they may have used some of the same locations for this one, judging by the corridors that I saw. So maybe it was just obviously they picked up issues there that came on. And if I want to stretch for a third negative that I've thought of, I think Amy was being very early companion again in this one.
Right.
She was just being very. First of all,
she's forgotten Rory almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all the previous 5 episodes of character development has been undone.
That's another thing I liked when Vincent was like, he could tell that she was sad and she was crying and hadn't realised stuff. That was a nice little bit as well.
I did appreciate that, but I put is this the first time Amy's travelled in time? She's making rookie mistakes.
Idiot.
I can't even remember what it was about that. But
it's probably when she's shouting in the cupboard after they've said don't make so much noise.
Oh yeah, that was
it's gone past. Has it, Amy?
yeah.
Well, now it hasn't, Amy.
This was this was something when they were in the pub, I think. Oh, it was like she was like talking about either the future or the painting he was going to do or something like that, and the Doctor was like, shut up, you're going to spoil it, shut up. And I was like, come on, you've already been to the past a number of times at this point. This is time travel 101, surely you know this. I would forgive this if this was episode 2 and you were making these mistakes, similar to Fires of Pompeii, where they're trying to be like, oh, don't do this, don't say that. But there's been plenty of adventures at this, and I do think that the absence of Rory and the forgetting of Rory does undo some of her character development, her positive character development.
I think it also shows why she needs him.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah.
It's kind of like he's going to come back, and I think rather than regression, because I guess because we know where it's going, it's more so a display of that. So they could have just not mentioned or alluded to Rory at all, and then it would have been like. But I think they are aware of that.
It keeps him at the front of the mind, which is fair. But I do think that she's again very early
days
time traveler, which is a shame. A couple of other sort of notes I've got on this one is I appreciate the line, if you paint it, he will come, which is a good little reference there. Also, it was a very convenient funeral procession that went
Yeah.
past as they were doing that. Also appreciated 11 basically smiling as the funeral went by. I was
I
like,
noticed that. I was like, why are you smiling?
bit too happy there, mate. What? You're right. I put in big capital letters. It's a metaphor.
It
so
is.
obviously, Vincent's a big flirt. Big F for being married. Because obviously he's like, I'm not going to get married. You know, I put here nice because dead husband. I can only assume I can no longer remember what that is.
Good.
It's between.
This is what happens when you watch the episode the day before.
Yeah, God, it's between two Bill Nye points, so it must be when they're in the start of the museum. So I must be talking about Amy at that point.
Dead husband.
Nice because dead
Oh,
husband.
maybe it's because
I remember now.
Being
The
nice to
11th Doctor is being nice to Amy, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Why are you being nice to me?" I was like, "Dead husband." Even though not
We've
nice.
worked it out. We're not
There we
leaving
go.
it
My
hanging
cryptic
there.
clues. Look at that.
It all came flooding back.
Yeah, their school kids aren't necessary. I think the strong West Country accent of the barkeep, I think, really threw me off. I was like, oh, I know Doctor Who has a thing of doing that for whatever.
I've had
but
that
it's
watching The Sandman today. When
Oh,
Jenna Coleman has
right.
a completely different voice than I'm used to. I'm like, whoa.
Oh, please stop it. Yeah, I wasn't appreciative of that. That also goes through to the slight complaint that why isn't the TARDIS translating what the alien says? Because the Doctor's like, oh, he's trying to say something, but we just hear grumbles. That's just the TARDIS translation thing works when it needs to work.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
He's a very old being. It's fine.
Yeah, and I also appreciated the I'll be back quicker before you can say whatever, and he goes, not that fast, and then again, that's where the good humor comes in.
Like, you sucker.
Yeah. So, okay. But yeah, I think overall, just it's a very, very good episode. But before we rate it out of 10, you must have some good fun facts.
I've got fun facts. I guess we'll decide if they're good.
Oh,
But yes,
they normally
are
fine.
Plentiful.
Woohoo!
Thank you to them rewatching it and doing a Twitter marathon with some of the actors, which provided some of the fun facts today.
Yeah.
Anyway, writer Richard Curtis wanted to call the episode "The Eyes That See the Darkness," but Stephen Moffat wanted a specific reference to Vincent in the title, so we've got boring ass title, Vincent and the Doctor instead. Yeah. But that's fine. Whatever. I guess I get it if you're advertising it for Vincent fans. This was the first time Doctor Who had explored mental health and suicide as a key part of an episode's story and characters. The original broadcast was followed by a message and phone number for the BBC Action Line for those seeking more information for issues raised in the programme, which is a first for a Doctor Who episode. So that's sweet. Glad that they did that. The accordion player in the cafe is playing a rendition of I Am the Doctor, which I didn't notice, but it's nice.
I have no idea there was an accordion player even in there. So,
well, there you go.
Sorry.
Doing his job well of setting the scene. Too well, if anything. This is the second episode of the series to not feature cracks or silence or foreshadowing of the finale, following Amy's choice, although Rory's absence is
I say you could. Yeah, I say Rory's lack of presence is kind
There's not a crack in sight.
No. Well, that church is pretty old.
True. Bill Nye agreed to take part on the condition that he wasn't credited, no publicity photos were taken of him, and he didn't have to give any interviews. He filmed all his scenes in one day, and he had also previously been considered for the role of the Ninth Doctor, which is fun little.
So basically, I'll do it, but I don't want people to know that I'm doing it because it's a terrible thing. It very much seems like
nice
I'll
surprise.
do it, but I don't want to.
It comes across that way, but he also did the tweet along thing, so I kind of feel like it was just I don't want the fuss of it.
It was just maybe he didn't want to take away from the show. I guess. I mean, that's pretty big-headed of him, but maybe that's his thought.
Maybe. During the hashtag Doctor Who lockdown trend of rewatching old episodes, Matt Smith and Bill Nye briefly joined Twitter to take part in the watch-along, while Stephen Moffat briefly rejoined after. I'm just laughing at the police car in the background or whatever it is.
Sorry.
It's almost as if you shouldn't have opened your window.
I know. It's almost as if it's bloody summer. Oh, man. God. I hate it.
Oh, well. It's gone now. While Stephen Moffat briefly rejoined after deleting his old account. 3 guesses why he had to delete his Twitter, folks. definitely wasn't getting any hate.
People were being so nice.
They were just being too nice, so he deleted his
Too
account.
nice, yeah.
Absolutely
That's
correct.
the problem, yeah.
But yeah, he got that again. And Karen Gillan also took part, but she was already on Twitter. So
yeah.
Nye revealed that he was asked what kind of bow tie he'd like to wear in his scenes, and he asked for a navy polka dot one. The production team actually struggled to find one that met his brief.
Why ask him then? Why ask him? Why not say, we've got these bow ties, which one do you want? Why say?
Because they might have had something that he really, really wanted. And anyway, if you'd let me finish.
No.
The production team struggled to find one that met the brief and ended up sewing polka dots individually onto one. It became a running joke on set that someone would ask Nye if he knew how far production had gone to satisfy him. So they made a joke of it. It's their job.
I know, but surely you would know what bow ties you've got. It's like saying to someone, "What do you want for dinner?" And they go, "Yes."
They can just go out and buy one.
Then buy a lobster. You know, I don't
talking about lobsters, Connor. This is a serious episode.
No, but it's like, it's like if you said to someone, "What do you want for dinner?" and you went, "Oh, I'll have lobster." Like, "Oh, sorry, don't have lobster." You're not going to go out and get it. Just give them the option of what there is. I'll get to this, but
or they could be courteous to your guest star who's agreed to do this on very specific terms. You don't want to upset him. Maybe, Connor.
No, just give him the option of bow ties. Just
they had a costume budget for him. They might as well use it. Otherwise, they're going to get a smaller budget for the next series, and they already get small enough budget.
That is true. Yeah. Got to spend the budget else. I think you can do it on less money.
Exactly. Matt Smith revealed during the tweet along that Karen Gillan stole some of the sunflowers from the set and still has them on display on her wall at home. So
wow, they've lived a long time.
It's almost as if they're not real sunflowers.
What?
Impossible. Karen Gillan herself then revealed that her father had bought her replica Van Gogh sunflowers painting for her birthday, which is very wholesome. The song used during the scene with Vincent in the museum is Chances by Athlete. This was Matt Smith's idea, as he is a fan of the band. So thank you, Matt. It's a very good song. I have not listened to anything else by Athlete, but I do like that song, so well done. This is the first Doctor Who episode since 1963 to end on a cut to black.
Oh, I thought they all did, but all right.
Of course not.
I guess they all just.
You
I guess they just fade.
They roll into the credits. They just go into the credits.
Yeah, sometimes they go through the keyhole of the TARDIS.
Exactly. That was a thing they did. The self-portrait of Vincent isn't a direct replica of the original, as it was tweaked to look a bit more like actor Tony Curran. The prop was reused in Series 10's Smile. So once we get to that in about 3 years, be sure to keep your eye out for that.
I cannot remember it's in there, but I will take your word for it.
Yeah, I think there's a scene where he walks through an exhibit on history or something like that.
Yeah, it might be in like a
it's something like that, I believe. So there you go. Writer Richard Curtis had been fascinated by the life of Van Gogh for most of his life and read a 200-page biography on him to prepare to write the episode, which he claimed was more research than he'd normally do for a project, but wanted to take it seriously.
Normally I read 100 pages.
Normally I don't do anything. He aimed to be truthful rather than cruel and refused to make any jokes about Van Gogh's ears after he famously cut one off, which is probably why he doesn't have a missing part of his ear in this episode. And he didn't actually cut off his whole ear, it was just a lobe of one. So people to calm down. Scenes set in Provence were filmed on location in Croatia during the same production block of The Vampires of Venice.
Well, hey!
Hooray! Well done.
Producing the best and the worst episodes of the series.
I dispute that. Actually,
sure.
Vampires of Venice was very good. And do you know Beast Below?
To be fair, yeah, Beast Below is the worst. Forgive me. You are. I am corrected. Beast Below is the worst.
You've been very wrong in these past 5 minutes.
Oh no, I apologise.
You should do. Richard Curtis's daughter Scarlett suggested Van Gogh's painting The Church at Auvers, I think is how you pronounce it, as the one that the Doctor should spot the Graffaius in. So I like that he kind of got input from her. Several scenes.
Not doing his own work.
What? You're in a right mood today. Several scenes were cut for time, shocking, including some featuring the mother of the girl who was killed, and the Doctor explained that he could recall the Graffaius from a book of scary stories that he was read on Gallifrey. Oh. Interesting.
Doctor Who lore for the Doctor that's not already pre-established.
Oh no, ridiculous!
They can't do that.
Doctor Who is ruined.
No, worst episode ever.
0 out of 10. Get them out of here. Richard Curtis asked Stephen Moffat to criticise everything and anything about his drafts. Moffat noted that the episode needed to start quicker and to make the Doctor and Amy's first meeting with Vincent more like one of Richard Curtis's films, Love Actually being among them. He also noted that the Doctor didn't speak quite as much as Curtis had written in the script and suggested he watch some other episodes to see that the Doctor speaks a bit more efficiently. The pair had previously had a working relationship anyway, as Curtis had produced Moffat's Red Nose Day special, The Curse of Fatal Death. Curtis wanted to write for the show as he knew his kids would like it. Wholesome.
And I don't know if it is one of your fun facts, but obviously Bill Nye is in Love Actually. So they would have previously worked.
You're correct.
As well.
That's probably another reason that they could get him.
Yeah,
Speaking of that,
the
producers wanted to cast someone high profile for the small role of Dr. Black, as it was very important that the audience truly listened to what the character was saying, mainly the biographical information surrounding Van Gogh. They got Bill Nye. There you go. And then finally, the original script was a pure character piece where the Doctor and Amy spent an uneventful few days with Vincent, but the executives insisted a monster be included in the
aliens.
It was Stephen Moffat's idea for the Graffaius to be invisible to tie into the whole depression metaphor, etc., etc. So kind of like a Rosa situation where it probably would have been better off just being about Rosa Parks, but they had to put in the white racist guy.
Ironically, that is the complete opposite for what Doctor Who was originally supposed to be.
I know, right?
Come full circle.
It's almost as if it would have been cancelled without the Daleks. So yeah, those are your fun facts.
Lovely. I do love it. I did think Richard Curtis was the Richard Curtis.
It is the Richard Curtis.
The Richard Curtis, who is a very good writer of rom-coms and drama. Except for Red Nose Day, actually, which I remain is it's just the worst sequel to any property ever. It's just so.
I thought you except for Red Nose Day, actually. I was like,
no. The sequel to Love Actually, Red Nose Day, actually, which was I can't really call it a cash grab because it's for charity, but it just wasn't. It was just so lazy. I thought. No, anyway, we're not here to review Red Nose Day, actually.
That's next week.
So that's the special episode coming out.
Well, next week is kind of a rom-com, so.
That is true, yeah. We'll pause that in a second. For episode 10, out of 10, what are you giving Vincent and the Doctor?
9.5 for me.
Nice. Mine is a 9. Is it,
sure. You hate Doctor.
Perfect, I do. How dare I? It's a 1. 0 Daleks, 1 out of 10.
Yeah. There'll be people out there who rate it like that.
Probably, to be fair.
There's no doubt it's so bad.
Didn't have
the not at all political Daleks are not in it.
Yeah, too woke. 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
If it came out now, you guarantee that would be the review. I bet you, to be fair, if you went on IMDb, well, to be fair, sometimes I don't, but if you went on IMDb, you'd probably see reviews like that.
Absolutely.
Sadly. But yes, that was Vincent and the Doctor. And now we're on to everyone's favourite episode of the series, The Lodger, with everyone's favourite actor, James Corden. I remember enjoying this one when it first came out. I think it's a pretty harmless episode. I think James Corden is pretty good in it. He's obviously just basically fresh off the back of Gavin Stacey pretty much at this point. Police cars going by again.
Yeah, they're not a fan of The Lodger.
No, clearly it's because I said James Corden's name and they're coming for me.
Okay, fair.
What do you think / remember about The Lodger?
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Scene.
I think it's a fun kind of romp of an episode. I think it is what it is. I think it's very well placed after a very heavy episode and just before a very heavy finale. So I like that it's Series 5's last chance to have fun properly, I guess, before shit hits the fan again. Which is nice. And I remember enjoying it. I think it's a very kind of unique idea. I think it's based on a comic strip with the Ninth Doctor, and he's sorry to bring him up, but he stays with Mickey, and it's kind of a similar situation. So kind of sort of adapted that, like they adapted like Dalek from like a Big Finish story, comic, some kind of Human Nature, etc. So one of those.
Beep the Meep.
Yes, Beep the Meep. I also think the writer of the next one's the unfortunate transphobe, from what I remember. So that's a shame. But I think it's a fun little romp from what I remember. I think Matt Smith and James Corden, say what you will about James Corden, whether you like him or not, I do think him and Matt Smith work very well together. So well, I guess they wanted to do it again in series 6, which they do.
Mhm.
So yeah, I remember kind of liking it. Retroactively interesting as well, given what the ship is at the end in relation to the silence, which I think is quite fun. So yeah, I did very much enjoy it. I think the first time around, especially when coming off the back of Gavin Stacey, there's still a lot of hype around. It was a big name to get at the time, so it's quite fun to see, how James Corden / Smithy-esque James Corden is in this one. Or if Craig is like a very different character. I can't really remember too many details about him and Sophie and everything, but yeah, I'm excited to check it out. The football scene will always be iconic. So yeah, I am intrigued. It's not one, again, out of series 5 that I will go back to loads. It's not like a huge favorite, but I remember enjoying it, and I think particularly how emotionally drained I've been left this time with Vincent the Doctor. I'm ready to just sit down and relax for 45 minutes and hopefully have a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, I do think this one might be the sort of hidden gem of the series. I wouldn't say we've necessarily found one of them yet. And it could be this one. I think I would say that Craig is basically PG Smithy, I guess, in this is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You can, not to sound terrible, but you can tell by, the sort of the weight of James Corden, I should say, that this is almost off the back of Gavin and Stacey when you compare to how he looks now and how fit he's been since he's been in America, since he's obviously gotten bigger. So you can still
tell it's smaller, Connor.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, how silly of me. But yeah, and it is, arguably at the time it was a big get. Even now, it's a strange thing. Even so that he's been linked with playing the Doctor. He was linked with playing the Doctor, which I found hilarious.
Of course.
Because I personally don't dislike James Corden, and I don't necessarily understand the dislike that the British public has towards him. Really, I just always get I just get the impression that people are just jealous that he managed to pick a career for himself that actually did well, and actually did well off the back of the success that he had with his own show. Sometimes people just don't like that, and I get a little bit of
They're
that.
mad that we haven't had more Gavin and Stacey after the
I think there might be a bit of that. There's probably a bit of him and Matthew Horn. Him and Matthew Horn's relationship, I think, was a bit strained after Gavin and Stacey, and I think there was all sorts going around. But I don't blame the guy for getting a successful career. It's a kind of similar thing that's sort of happening with Jack Whitehall at the minute, where he went from everyone's favourite to now he's sort of getting bigger roles. People like being like, I never did that kind of thing. The British people are just very spiteful.
Yeah, once people get like everywhere, they're suddenly bad.
Yeah, and you even see it with like Tom Holland now. When Tom Holland's getting more roles, everyone's like,
suddenly he's like the worst Spider-Man ever.
Yeah,
he's never been cast, and
exactly. And it is what it is. But I'm excited to see how he gets introduced in this one. I remember liking his character and liking sort of the little arc that they have for him. I think there's quite a nice emotional core to this one as well. Quite, literally like a nice romantic core to this, which is very wholesome, and a very nice, good palate cleanser for the series finale, which is coming up straight after. Oh boy, very heavy. But yes, that is it for this week then. We'll be back next week with The Lodger, unless some big Doctor Who news breaks in the meantime. It might do, you never know. We're getting closer and closer to the centenary, and we are yet to have a title or any further trailers. So who knows? If that does come out in the next week, I'm sure we'll be back to have a chat about it. But until then, we will be back probably next weekend with The Lodger. Goodbye.
Bye.